Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, February 20th, 2026. Your reader for this hour is me, Chet Walczyk. I'm glad you are able to join us. We have the weekend edition of USA Today, and we'll kick it off with the opening section. And a tragic, hard-to-believe story. Despite warnings, avalanche kills 8 in California. The warnings were clear and eerie. A winter storm warning forecast up to 8 feet of snow in California's Lake Tahoe region, and avalanche conditions were considered very dangerous. Blackbird Mountain Guides, now under scrutiny for its role in the deadliest avalanche in the United States in 4 decades, had multiple social media posts that acknowledged possible avalanche threats in the region. Big storm incoming, one post read on February 15th. Avalanches could behave abnormally, and the hazard could last longer than normal. That same day, an ill-fated group of 11 clients led by 4 guides from Blackbird Mountain Guides left for a 3-day trip that would end in tragedy. They went to a pristine alpine lake called Frog Lake, just a few miles northeast of the infamous Donner Party disaster of 1847. They stayed in the hard-to-reach Frog Lake huts for 2 nights and enjoyed a full day of backcountry skiing. But on the last and 3rd day of the trip, an avalanche came crashing down, killing 3 guides and 5 guests and leaving 6 survivors. A 9th person was not found and is presumed dead. As families grieve and crews come up with a plan to remove the bodies from the mountain when it's safe, the guiding company is facing a tough question. Given the known dangers, why did they still go? The area where the avalanche occurred is known for its beauty, skiing, and danger. The Donner Land Trust, which owns the Frog Lake area, says on its website that all areas are uncontrolled avalanche terrain that require appropriate avalanche education and equipment. Winter wilderness travel is not to be taken lightly. All visitors must understand people die every year in the backcountry, the Land Trust said. Ahead of the storm, the Sierra Avalanche Center issued an avalanche watch for the area at 7:45 a.m. the day the group set out. Forecasters had warned of avalanche danger in the days leading up to the watch as well. A powerful storm with rapidly accumulating snowfall and strong winds may cause widespread avalanche activity in the mountains, the watch said. Very dangerous avalanche conditions could occur in the backcountry. Traveling in, near, or below backcountry avalanche terrain during high avalanche danger is not recommended. The warnings were strong enough to Kurt Gensheimer said he made sure to be out of the region before the snow hit. The avid backcountry skier stayed with a group in the Frog Lake huts from February 12th to the 15th. The day the group led by Blackbird arrived, reported the Reno Gazette. We planned to leave before the storm came in, Gensheimer told the Gazette Journal. I think the main thing with this storm was that it was a massive amount of snow in a short time, on top of a snowpack that had not seen very much snow in over a month. He said he knows some guys with Blackbird Mountain Guides and said that those who go out in the region where the avalanche occurred are very experienced and know what they're doing. Still, he called the fatal avalanche a 100% preventable tragedy. We love to play in the snow, and we do it for fun and enjoyment, he said. But it's also really serious, sad business. Authorities are investigating the totality of the tragedy, Nevada County Sheriff Shannon Moon said at a news conference on February 18th. That includes finding out why the trip was not canceled. Lots of forecasts on the storm, Moon said. Those are the decisions that the guide company clearly had made. We are still in conversation with them on the decision factors that they made. She said getting to the bottom of the major questions surrounding the tragedy is her top priority. I think that's the core piece of my mind, is wanting to be able to provide answers to the families that were affected, the guide members that were present, and the clients that paid for this trip, she said. She added that the company has been very cooperative and wanted to do everything that they could to assist in the search and rescue efforts following the avalanche. Blackbird Mountain Guides did not respond to USA Today email asking about why the company moved forward with the trip, given the advanced storm warnings. The company released a statement the day of the avalanche to say that its leadership team was working in full coordination with the Nevada County Sheriff's Office and Nevada County Search and Rescue to support the ongoing rescue operation. Blackbird Mountain Guides is in direct contact with the emergency contacts of the affected clients and guides and is providing them with regular updates as verified information becomes available, the company said. Later that night, the company said that it was navigating an incredibly difficult situation alongside those involved and referred all questions to the sheriff's office. The company's website shows that 3-day trips to the Frog Lake huts are still available at a cost of $1,165. Beyond amazing skiing, the huts are equipped with creature comforts that make sleeping deep in the backcountry an absolute pleasure, the trip details say. The trip includes deluxe breakfast and dinners and some safety gear, but does not include avalanche gear, though the company recommends everyone bring avalanche beacons, shovels, and probes. It's unclear whether the company required everyone to carry such gear and what gear those affected by the avalanche had on them. Customers who have gone on the trip wrote rave reviews, with one saying, "The Frog Lake huts are a magical place to spend a few days." Another wrote that despite the tough weather and significant avalanche conditions, they kept the tour safe, fun, and exhilarating. "I now believe storm skiing may be the best way to go." 3 key factors should be considered when assessing avalanche dangers, said Myron Allen, a volunteer ski patroller and the chair of the National Ski Patrol's National Board of Directors. 1 is weather, the second is terrain, and the third is snowpack, Allen said, adding that it is critical to consider recent heavy snowfall and the steepness of the terrain. Though Allen declined to comment on the Blackbird Mountain Guides trip, he noted that many avalanche accidents occur when there is insufficient planning. "I am very interested in seeing what the final reports look like. I feel very bad to learn about a guided party running into such a devastating avalanche accident," he said. "Maybe we can learn by understanding how the events unfolded." When asked why people venture into the backcountry despite heightened risks, Allen said the appeal of the terrain and the isolation may play roles. "Just speaking from personal experience, the mountains are beautiful in the winter," Allen said. "I think people are just drawn to the wild beauty and the solitude of the mountain covered in snow. I think that's the main motivation. Also, it can be quite fun to ski and snowboard in the backcountry." And continuing with a similar theme, I found this story interesting. Snow's hidden wonders celebrated amid the games. Experts unpacked frozen elements fueling winter magic of the Olympics. Well, call it beautiful, annoying, inspiring, or dangerous. Snow is anything but boring, and that's even before you start learning more about the science behind it. Olympians and everyday Americans know snow is a complex and fickle phenomenon, influenced by temperature and moisture, but it's so much more than that. It's just frozen water, but it can be so many different things, Gus Schumacher, a cross-country skier competing in the Winter Olympics, told USA Today. Snow, of course, is essential to the Winter Games. It flies into the air as skiers race downhill and adds to the scenic mountain backdrops in the Italian Alps. When Austrian skier Benjamin Karl won a gold medal in the men's parallel giant slalom on opening weekend, He celebrated by ripping off his jacket and shirt and collapsing face down into the snow in homage to one of his idols. Besides being critical for winter sports and events, snow plays many other important roles, said David Robinson, New Jersey state climatologist and a distinguished professor in the Rutgers University Geography Department. It is a vital source of drinking water and hydropower and provides water to irrigate crops, Robinson said. In California, they hope for snowfall each winter to help ensure an adequate water supply for months to come, he said. Snow can protect plants and soils from deep freezes and affect wildlife migration, hibernation, and survival. It's also a driving influence on winter weather. So it comes as no surprise that scientists study snow, snowfall, and snowpack, and are working to improve forecasts. Even the snow sports attract scientists and snow experts. Well, there's a lot to know about snow, including these facts from Robinson and the National Snow and Ice Data Center. Snow falls as ice crystals when there's adequate humidity and freezing temperatures. It's translucent, not white. It's the light reflecting off snow that makes it look white. Snow dampens sounds when snow cover is fresh because it absorbs sound waves. Once it melts and refreezes, it can reflect sound waves. It can refrigerate the lower atmosphere and lead to more snow. It reflects 4 to 6 times more of the sun's energy than bare ground absorbs. It covers such a massive area in the northern hemisphere that it controls heat and cooling patterns over land more than any other single feature. Snowpack can also provide a ground-level layer of insulation for small mammals and animals. It's called the subnivean layer, and it creates an igloo-like effect for animals building burrows in it, Robinson said. The snow keeps the temperature there at freezing and provides a hidden little world for the animals even when the pack temperatures above are at or below zero. Snowpack can also insulate winter wheat, insulate soil so it doesn't freeze as deeply, and moisten soils to help prompt germination as the snow melts in the spring, he said. Well, the effects aren't always positive. When snow melts too fast, it becomes a flood threat. Or when action is happening in the layers of snow below the surface, it can create dangerous avalanches. When snow gets too deep or develops an icy crust, it can be harder for big mammals to move through it. In Robinson's New Jersey community, deer that are commonly seen in backyards have been meandering on the street since the community has been under roughly 10 inches of snow for the last 17 days. For competition skiing, the science of snow is really complicated, Schumacher said. It's the job of skiers and their teams to know what conditions are and how to make the most of them or avoid pitfalls. Temperature, water content, and the crystal shapes of snowflakes dictate a lot about which skis and wax are used during competition events, Schumacher said. There may be a million combinations of skis and wax and structure. Schumacher's role when skiing a course is to know how soft or firm the snow is because that dictates where his power application has to change. When it's really warm and snow begins melting to slush, you have to ski differently, he said. Slushy conditions have been blamed for performance issues in the opening days of the Winter Games. Well, how would you describe snow? Indigenous tribes, meteorologists, and even Olympians have a host of words for describing snow. As it falls, snow might change form to sleet, rain, or ice, depending on conditions, then back to snow again. After snow falls, skiers might call it powder, slush, ice, or sugar, Schumacher said. Champagne powder describes super light and fluffy snow, while Sierra cement describes the more wet snow traditional in California's High Sierra. Sometimes he uses corn to describe the surface of the snow when it's melting and refreezing, while maritime snowpack describes the really wet snow that clings to steep surfaces and attracts skiers to remote slopes in Alaska. Schumacher, who claimed his second World Cup victory by winning a 5-kilometer freestyle event in December, said he regularly takes time to just admire the snow. The winter ski season started in Finland, and the snow and frosty trees against the pastel colors in the sky from the low angle of the sun were pretty hard to beat beauty-wise, he said. Even at night, the darkness is nicer because of the light reflecting from the snow, he said. If you are in a city, it's the ambient light on the snow, and if you're not, it's the moonlight and starlight on the snow, which I think is just amazing. I love it, he said. I love the winter. Schumacher competed in 3 events during the opening week of these Olympics. He finished 24th in the skiathlon, just missed qualifying for the quarterfinals in the cross-country skiing men's sprint classic, and competed in the men's 10-kilometer race, finishing 39th. His love of snow is behind his support of the Protect Our Winters organization, a group that includes Olympians and former Olympians concerned about climate warming and its impacts on snow, particularly in the American West. Around the world, Schumacher and other sports enthusiasts see rain lines higher on mountains than before, trees growing at higher elevations, and glaciers that are shrinking. It's scary, he said. A lot of our races are more iffy, and if they happen, they often happen with snow farming and snow making. So how about that? More to snow than we just look at or complain about. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 17 minutes after the hour, and we continue with the opening section for Friday, February 20th. And oh boy, here's something else to worry about. Study links Alzheimer's risk and air pollution. Exposure to air pollution may directly increase your risk for Alzheimer's disease, according to a new study. In the study, published February 17th in the open access journal PLOS Medicine, researchers found a 5-year average exposure to fine particulate air pollution was associated with an increased risk of the brain disorder. The study used data from more than 27 million U.S. Medicare recipients aged 65 and older from 2000 to 2018. The study looked especially at fine particulate matter called PM2.5, which the Environmental Protection Agency defines as fine inhalable particles with diameters generally of 2.5 micrometers and smaller that can cause serious health problems and even enter the bloodstream. Previous studies have found a connection between air pollution and Alzheimer's, but typically via other chronic health conditions such as hypertension, stroke, and depression. Until these findings, it was unclear whether air pollution causes these chronic conditions, which then lead to dementia, or if air pollution directly impacted brain health. We found that long-term exposure to fine particulate air pollution was associated with a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease, largely through direct effects on the brain, rather than through common chronic conditions, the authors noted in a news release. Masashi Kitazawa, professor of environmental and occupational health at UC Irvine, said the study further strengthens the possible causal link between particulate matter and Alzheimer's disease. Remarkably, results from this study predict a possibly direct toxic mechanism of particulate matter to Alzheimer's disease, said Kitazawa, who was not involved in the study. Dr. Haroon Ahmad, a neurologist at the University of Maryland Medical Center, said studies like these are important for understanding how disease processes develop. But he emphasizes that this study is observational, which shows a correlation, not a causation. While research like this points us in the right direction for future studies, we should be cautious not to jump to conclusions, Ahmad, who was not involved in this study, added. The authors also found that the association between air pollution and Alzheimer's risk was slightly stronger in individuals who had experienced a stroke. Our findings suggest that individuals with a history of stroke may be particularly vulnerable to the harmful effects of air pollution on brain health, highlighting an important intersection between environmental and vascular risk factors, the authors added. It's not clear why this is, though, Ahmad added. It could be related to a previously damaged brain from stroke being weaker in fighting off toxins, suggested Ahmad, who is also an assistant professor at the University of Maryland School of Medicine. A 2025 report found up to 7.2 million Americans aged 65 and older are living with Alzheimer's disease, an increase of about 300,000 cases from the previous years. The authors hope these findings will highlight the need for air quality interventions as part of dementia prevention strategies in aging populations. And, not to further depress you, here's something else that if you want to worry about, go ahead and worry about it. Be careful about how you brew your cup of joe. Unfiltered methods can raise bad cholesterol. For many people, coffee is a daily ritual, a staple in your morning routine that kickstarts the day. But, and here's that word but, if you're keeping an eye on your cholesterol, you may want to also take an extra look at your morning cup of joe. Nutrition experts say coffee can affect cholesterol both in how it's brewed, that being what method you're using to make the coffee, and how it's prepared, what you're adding to your coffee. Coffee contains oily compounds called diterpenes that can interfere with the body's cholesterol regulating processes and raise LDL, or bad cholesterol, when consumed regularly, according to Candace Pumper, a registered dietitian at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. Unfiltered coffee contains far more of these compounds than paper-filtered coffee, making your brewing method an important factor for cholesterol, she added. Paper-filtered coffee, like drip or pour over, may be the best choice for heart health, Pumper explained, while unfiltered methods such as Scandinavian boiled and Turkish coffee contain the highest level of these compounds. French press can also fall into this unfiltered category since it does not use a paper filter, though it's often grouped with metal filtered methods like percolator because the metal mesh strains out grounds while still letting most oils through, she said. While research on coffee alone is limited and mostly based on observational studies, Laura Ligos, a registered dietitian and nutritionist, said what someone is adding likely will affect their cholesterol more than the coffee itself. We know that saturated fats like those found in heavy cream, butter, or coconut oil can impact cholesterol, and we also know that insulin resistance can also contribute to worse lipids and triglycerides, she said. So, you ask, what's the best way for at-home baristas? Black, or with limited amounts of sugar and or milk, Ligos suggested. If you consume a lot of saturated fats and or added sugars throughout the day, then adding more to your coffee could be an issue, she said. But if you eat a well-balanced diet and hydrate well and enjoy a coffee just for fun, it might be okay to add some heavy cream and or some sugar. It truly does depend on the person, their health goals, and their overall intake. Coffee is just one part of a bigger picture, too, the experts agreed. Beyond the brewing method, it's helpful to keep in mind that many different factors influence cholesterol, like genetics, age, gender, diet, lifestyle, and certain health conditions, Pumper said. And for most people, coffee alone is not going to be a big driver in cholesterol numbers, Ligos added. Dose matters for everything, and too much coffee, especially in the caffeinated variety, may lead to other heart health issues, she said. So there you go. I'm going to continue to do what I am doing. I am continuing the health theme. NIH director to step in as interim head of CDC. U.S. National Institutes of Health Director Jay Bhattacharya will step in as acting director for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, a Trump administration official said on February 18th, part of a broader shakeup within the health department ahead of midterm elections. Health and Human Services Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill, who has been serving as acting CDC director since August, will vacate both roles as part of a leadership restructuring within the department, the official added. O'Neill will be offered the position of National Science Foundation Director. Bhattacharya's appointment was first reported by the New York Times on February 18th, while Politico reported O'Neill's departure on February 13th. Bhattacharya, a Stanford University professor who gained prominence as a leading critic of lockdowns and widespread COVID-19 restrictions, already leads the nation's premier medical research agency based in Maryland, where he oversees a nearly $50 billion budget and funding for thousands of scientific projects. He is now tasked with also leading the Atlanta-based CDC, which tracks and responds to domestic and foreign threats to public health. Roughly two-thirds of its budget funds public health and prevention activities of state and local health agencies. The notion that the current director of the NIH can take on the mantle of another federal agency in his spare time is hard to understand, said Dan Jernigan, who resigned as director of the CDC's National Center for Emerging and Zoonotic Infectious Diseases in August. The NIH and the CDC, both of which require full-time attention, are in different cities, said Deb Hurry, former chief medical officer at the CDC. This puts our nation at greater risk for not being able to respond to health threats and outbreaks, she said. The CDC has faced significant instability, including budget cuts, staff reductions, and controversies under Secretary of Health and Human Services Director Robert Kennedy Jr. President Trump fired then CDC Director Suzanne Monteras in August after she resisted changes to vaccine policy advanced by Kennedy that she believed contradicted scientific evidence, further destabilizing the already embattled agency. Her dismissal triggered the resignation of 4 senior CDC officials, including Hurry and Jernigan, who cited anti-vaccine policies and misinformation pushed by Kennedy. Under O'Neill's tenure, the CDC eliminated long-standing vaccine guidance for children and approved an advisory panel's recommendation against early use of a combined measles, mumps, rubella, varicella vaccine in October. The advisory panel had been gutted and then restaffed by Kennedy with handpicked vocal vaccine opponents. Per federal law, Bhattacharya can serve as acting CDC director only until late March unless Trump nominates a full-time nominee to the U.S. Senate. The law requires Trump to nominate a replacement within 210 days of Monteras' firing, which took place in late August. The 210-day limit is paused, however, as long as a nomination is pending in the Senate, allowing Bhattacharya or another acting director to remain while the confirmation process unfolds. You are listening to a reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour, and we jump over to the opinion section for Friday, February 20th. And we have a piece written by Sarah Pequeño. Ms. Pequeño is a columnist for USA Today and can be found on the social platform Blue Sky. Her piece is entitled, "I Went Phone-Free for a Day. What's hardest were my thoughts." I'm no iPad kid, but like so many people my age, I probably have an unhealthy relationship with my phone. I use my phone every single day and have for more than half my life. I use it to track my route to the office, to check the news, to keep up with friends and family, to practice my Spanish, to unwind after work. I don't like this about myself. So in January, I decided that one of my 2026 resolutions would be more cognizant of how I spend my free time. And I'm not the only one. In 2025, teenagers began forming Luddite clubs at high schools. Young people are buying physical media and switching back to flip phones. Parents are embracing a low-tech lifestyle for their whole family. I decided it was time for an experiment. Could I go an entire day, from the time I woke up to the time I went to bed, without my phone? Could I navigate New York City without the assistance of Google Maps or Apple Pay? I figured I may as well find out. So I picked up some maps, bought a watch, and loaded $20 on an Omnicard to ride the subway. Prior to my no-phone day, I spoke with University College London professor Caitlin Rieger, author of Smartphone Nation, and told her about the experiment. We talked about my plan for the day, what I would need, and the popularity of the low-tech movement. She also gave me a warning. You will feel feelings of withdrawal, and when you feel feelings of withdrawal, you are not going to like it. After waking up and grabbing a coffee from a nearby shop, I walked past piles of graying, trash-filled ice and got on the train toward Manhattan with the intent of checking out the Tenement Museum on the Lower East Side. This proved to be a great way to start my phone-free day. The 75-minute tour of immigrant housing at the turn of the 20th century was immersive, relevant, and went by in an instant. The folks who work at the museum also gave me some great recommendations on where to go for lunch. Normally, I would have found a spot using Google Maps. I decided to check out Katz's Delicatessen, a renowned New York stop some of you might know from that one scene in When Harry Met Sally. This is where I started feeling the repercussions of my choice to forego the phone. Katz's is undoubtedly delicious and busy. You must wait in line to get into the restaurant, then wait in line to order from one of the men preparing sandwiches at the counter. With a phone, this process would fly by. Alone with my thoughts, I realized how anxious I was in the crowd of people, and how on any other day I would have used my phone to combat that anxiety. The second issue of the day, the weather. It was bone-chilling cold in New York City on February 7th. After lunch, I decided to test out a Link NYC kiosk to call my mom from the modern-day payphone equivalent. She had been anxious about the safety of me going phone-free for a day, so I promised to call. She didn't pick up, so I left a voicemail. I realized just how long the day was starting to feel. I was freezing. I was bored. I was ready for my experiment to be over. I tried walking around, but I quickly realized this was not going to work with the weather. I decided to hail a cab to travel to the nearest subway station so I could get back to familiar territory. By the time I reached Greenwich Village, I could feel the inconveniences turning into grievances. I felt cold, defeated, and tired of my own inner monologue. I wanted my phone. It wasn't just that I was unsure of how to stumble upon an interesting shop or get to one of the city's many parks. It was the fact that I felt like an exposed nerve, taking in all the city's stimuli at once without any buffer. Regier said the practice of using a phone when things feel chaotic is called scrolling to soothe, and that it comes from the feeling of boredom we get when we aren't stimulating our brains with our phones. We are so uncomfortable with boredom now, she told me. That's worth thinking about because boredom is amazing. So much creativity comes out of moments of boredom, she said. Thankfully, the final part of my day proved to be the easiest. I was meeting up with my friend Danielle for her birthday dinner. Conveniently, she chose a restaurant directly across the street from the Empire State Building. It turns out that being unplugged is a lot easier when you've got people to talk to. The last 5 hours of the day flew by, thanks to good conversation and a few friendly games of shuffleboard. By the time I was getting on the train back to Brooklyn, I realized how exhausted I was. It was one of the longest days I'd experienced in recent memory, and I still had a 45-minute trip back to my apartment. As we crossed over the Williamsburg Bridge, I looked at the New York City skyline and reflected on what I had learned from my no-phone day. While my day wasn't perfect, I was surprised by how much easier it was to go without my phone than I had originally assumed. Sure, it took some prior planning, but New York City is surprisingly navigable even without a phone. The biggest obstacle I faced on the day turned out to be myself and my inability to deal with my own thoughts. The day also proved to be a bit expensive. It turns out that keeping yourself entertained for a full day can be quite costly, as opposed to the dopamine rush you get from constantly scrolling on a free site like TikTok or Instagram. I can't imagine what it would cost for an entire family to opt for analog options, which was another thing that had come up in my conversation with Regier. For families, it's a lot cheaper to opt for an iPad than it is to pay for more enriching analog activities that require hands-on attention. Some people say it's a very privileged activity to do this, the same way going to Planet Organic is a privileged activity, she said. These kinds of healthy lifestyle, aspirational lifestyle choices are often privileged. Now that I have all the tools to do so, I see myself doing more phone-free days in the future, and I am a lot less intimidated by the concept. You are listening to reading of today's issue of USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 38 minutes after the hour, and we move on to what used to be called the USA Today Money section, but has increasingly become the Travel and Tourism section. So, you can't fight the man. Let's go forward with their feature story, Passage of Peril. This treacherous waterway is a rite of passage on Antarctica cruises, and this is written by Nathan Diller, one of the USA Today travel contributors. Videos of cruise guests crossing the Drake Passage seem to go viral every few months. Viewers may have seen ships rocking back and forth, massive waves crashing over windows, and passengers struggling to hang on to their balance. It's not always like that, though. I always tell people, first off, social media makes the Drake Passage look a lot worse than it is. Tamitha Frederick, Senior Japan, South America, and Polar Specialist at Audley Travel, told USA Today. If a cruise to Antarctica is on a traveler's bucket list, they'll likely need to cross the notoriously treacherous waterway first. Here is what to know about sailing the Drake Passage. First of all, what is the Drake Passage? The Drake Passage stretches roughly 500 miles between South America's southern tip and the northern tip of the West Antarctic Peninsula, according to the United Kingdom's National Oceanography Center. The waterway links the Pacific and Atlantic Oceans and is the narrowest stretch of water in the Southern Ocean, according to its website. Frederick said it's famous because of the convergence of these oceans and the waves that are associated with it. Named for English explorer and privateer Sir Francis Drake, the area is unpredictable and passengers could experience a smooth Drake Lake or a rough Drake Shake. Frederick said waves are often between 10 and 14 feet, though they can range from 6.5 to 43 feet, according to expedition cruise operator Swan Hellenic. When I took an Antarctica voyage with Aurora Expeditions in 2023, conditions on the way from Ushuaia, Argentina, fell somewhere between, with waves ranging about 13 feet. Do all Arctic cruises go through the Drake Passage? Most of the ones sailing from South America do. Some cruise operators, such as National Geographic Lindblad Expeditions and Silversea Cruises, offer fly cruise itineraries that allow guests to bypass the crossing. And then there are cruises that go to the Falklands and South Georgia, Frederick added. And those are longer itineraries that include the Antarctic Peninsula, and they kind of circumnavigate the Drake Passage one way, but then inevitably you're going to have to go through it the other way. Those alternate itineraries also tend to be more expensive than those that sail through the Drake. How long does it take to cross the Drake Passage? The waterway takes about 2 days to sail in each direction. How to prepare for the Drake Passage? If travelers are concerned about crossing the Drake, there are some steps they can take to prepare. Before the cruise, Frederick recommended consulting your doctor about which seasickness medications to bring on board just in case. Many are available over the counter, while others require a prescription. So I would say definitely bring something, especially if you are prone to seasickness, she said. Cruise ships typically have a supply of medication on board as well, and medical staff who can advise guests as needed. Both large, more traditional cruise ships and smaller expedition ships visit Antarctica. While Frederick said passengers may notice the movement less on a bigger ship and face a lower risk of motion sickness, expedition ships are built for those conditions. A lot of these bigger cruises, they go all over the world. The staff obviously is experienced, but the expedition teams just go down there that specialize just in polar expeditions are truly experts in how to navigate the Drake Passage because they do it all the time. Another important distinction: ships carrying more than 500 passengers cannot take them on land, according to the International Association of Antarctic Tour Operators. That means bigger ships offer only scenic cruising. Frederick noted that expedition cruises feature nightly briefings, including before entering the Drake Passage. The crew will let you know how big the waves are looking and when they would advise you to take your medication so you have a better understanding of what it's going to be like, she said. Cruise operators also generally try to cross the roughest waters while guests are sleeping. Passengers may notice seasickness bags placed around the ship just in case, and some programming, such as lectures, could be pared back if the waves get especially choppy. The gym, elevator, and outside decks may close temporarily as well, though dining venues typically stay open, according to Frederick. Depending on the weather, cruise companies may even make schedule changes. That happened to me, where there was a storm and some ships went out, and there were issues with those, and some ships came back because they knew it was going to be better the next day, she said. So they will modify the itinerary or delay it if they need to, and then try to make up the time later on. Frederick, who is prone to seasickness herself, said she still recommends sailing across rather than flying, even if it comes with short-term discomfort. I do think that doing the Drake is Not only it is a rite of passage, but it also is a really good opportunity for people to get to know each other better, especially if you're on the smaller expedition cruise, she said. You get a lot of safety briefings on the way down, and lectures, and learn a lot. You kind of bond with the rest of the folks on board, whether it's through sickness or not. Park's work on being body size inclusive. Vicky Toupe is used to people asking about her body. On a daily basis, people ask me, "What do you weigh? What are your measurements? How tall are you? What size do you wear?" she told USA Today. Toupe knows dimensions matter to plus-size travelers like herself, particularly at theme parks, which don't always feel built for them. That's why she readily divulges details and her own park experiences on social media as Dream Big Vicky. I am 5'6". I weigh 270 pounds at the moment. I wear a size 22 or 24, she said, adding that it's not just about weight or size on rides, but how it's carried. My measurements are 52, 48, 56. My calves are 19 inches wide. Those kinds of measurements can help fellow travelers set expectations for their own trips to places like Universal Epic Universe. Universal is hard for me. Some days I'll fit on something, and some days I won't, Toupe said. She and other plus-size travelers have told USA Today the parks have not always been the most size inclusive, but they have been working on it. Universal Destinations and Experiences told USA Today they continuously listen to guest feedback and strive to design our attractions and experiences to safely accommodate a range of guests. The park noted it provides resources like an accessibility guide and test seats at some of its attractions to help guests feel informed and confident before riding. Toupe and other plus-size park content creators put those resources to the test to see how plus-size friendly Epic Universe can be. The first time I went, I did not fit on a few of the rides, said Jason Vaughn, a travel agent and content creator at Fat Tested Travel. Vaughn is 5'8" and has visited Epic Universe twice, once at about 350 pounds and more recently at 325 pounds. During his first visit, Vaughn did not fit on Curse of the Werewolf and Monsters Unchained: The Frankenstein Experiment. And though he did fit on Hiccup's wing gliders, it was very, very tight, he said. Since then, they've modified seats to several rides, and I've also lost just a little bit of weight that I can fit on a couple others, Vaughn said. He noted he never really thought he'd fit on Dragon Racers Rally, which allows guests to spin upside down, but fits in its modified seat as well. The only ride I cannot fit on right now is Stardust Racers. That same goes for Toupe, who has visited Epic Universe 5 times. For her, Curse of the Werewolf is hit or miss, but Stardust Racers has been a no every time. She would love to see modified seating offered at every ride. I know it's not absolutely possible, and I understand the restraints of certain rides. No pun intended, she said. I shouldn't ask for everything to be modified for me, but I also shouldn't have to lower expectations when I know some things can be modified. And why not others? Jose Velasquez, creator of the amusement park Dad channel on YouTube, has been happy with his experiences on his 2 Epic visits. I found that they're really making a huge effort to make it more accessible for bigger riders, and I was very appreciative of that, he said. Velasquez said he's on a weight loss journey, so his weight fluctuates, but he's 5'10", currently 370 pounds, and carries his weight evenly. Because of my belly, I'm a little bit better with the lap restraint rides because I can always put my belly over them or something like that, he said. But anything overhead is a little bit more challenging. He has not been able to ride Stardust Racers, Dragon Racers Rally, or Monsters Unchained yet, but he's looking forward to doing it someday. Most Epic Universe rides have test seats outside the attraction queue, so guests can see how they fit. Only Constellation Carousel and Fire Drill don't have them listed on the park's accessibility guide. I always encourage people to use the test seat. If you don't see a test seat, ask about a test seat. Many rides actually have two different ones. They will have one out front, and in case you missed it, there will be one near the end of the line if you want to check out at that point, Vaughn said, also encouraging guests to ask about modified seating options before getting in line. Tupe has waded through queues to try actual ride vehicles even when she didn't fit test seats. I always say, try. Give yourself a little grace and have the confidence to do it, she said. It may not work for you today, and that's okay. At least you tried. She says, some guests get embarrassed about trying out seats in front of others. However, Velasquez said, I think most of the time, people who don't know you don't really care, so they're not paying attention. It's best for you to just try it out so you know for sure. And team members are very supportive and very gracious, he added. Don't be afraid to ask for help because a lot of times they have good tips and tricks on how to maneuver certain things safely. While he acknowledged that it can be disappointing not to fit, he and Tupe agreed that it's better to be safe than sorry. I am always 100% safety first, Tupe said. If it doesn't lock to where it needs to lock, I will happily get off. Rides are only part of the park experience at Epic Universe. Velasquez and Vaughn recommend watching shows and meeting characters too. They also think some attraction lines are worth the wait, even if guests don't plan to ride. Monsters Unchained, Mario Kart, Bowser's Challenge, and Harry Potter and the Battle at the Ministry have particularly immersive queues. There's so much more fun to be had, Velasquez said. Tupe wishes there were more information available on things like seat depth and width, the way attractions post minimum or maximum height. I actually brought a tape measure to Epic with me and measured seats, because again, none of that information is anywhere, she said. Epic Universe's accessibility guide details which rides allow guests to remain in standard wheelchairs, permit service animals on board, provide closed captioning, and more. But the only mention of body size beyond height is noting when a ride employs safety restraints which may not accommodate certain people due to their body shape or size. This is standard across parks and destinations, not unique to Universal, and why many plus-size travelers rely on peer perspectives. Tupe encourages plus-size travelers to approach the park with an open mind. There are so many things that I had absolutely no faith in I was going to fit on, and I did, she said. It's definitely more size inclusive. Croatian City introduces ban on night alcohol sales. Oh my. One of Croatia's most popular seaside destinations is cracking down on rowdy tourists. Starting this summer, Split will become the first city in Croatia to prohibit the sale of alcohol in shops and liquor stores from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., reported local media outlet net.hr. Split Mayor Tomislav Uta announced the new regulations February 12th. It is precisely here that situations arise that impair the safety and quality of life of tenants, and the possibility of such rules being extended to other parts of Split is not ruled out, said Uta, according to net.hr. The ban will initially apply only to shops in the city center, not to bars, clubs, or restaurants. You can still enjoy a drink after 8 p.m., but the goal is simply to move drunken behavior and alcohol assumption away from public streets and into appropriate venues, said Daro Arhic, CEO of luxury Croatian travel agency VIP Holiday Booker. These measures are designed to encourage responsible drinking rather than to stop the fun. Following Split's footsteps, fellow Croatian cities Novalja and Makarska are also considering implementing a similar ban, a Croatian media outlet reported. So there you go. You're heading to Croatia. More rules to follow. You are listening to reading of articles and features from USA Today for Friday, February 20th on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We will return for more readings after this short break. Your reader for this hour has been me, Chet Walczyk. I'm glad you were able to join me. I'm glad I was able to be here. And I hope you have a great February weekend. We'll see you next time.
Television. NBC's Kornacki recalls birth of the khaki connection. From Alfie Aversa. Audiences have grown accustomed to watching Steve Kornacki, the chief data analyst at NBC News and NBC Sports, break down numbers pertaining to both elections and major sporting events on his signature big board. Kornacki's coverage is called upon for election nights, the Super Bowl, and the Olympics. But for as complex as these statistics can be, the person recalling all of the information tries to keep things pretty simple. On a cold February afternoon, Kornacki eschews a black car or Uber and makes the relatively short walk from 30 Rock to the USA Today newsroom in his trademark khakis and pair of New Balance sneakers. And while he realizes that people think he has a closet full of hundreds of khaki pants, in reality, the journalist says he only has 2 or 3. Growing up, elections and sports were his passions. Fashion was not. My mom was always trying to make me a little bit more fashionable and stuff, and I always kind of resisted. Kornacki, age 46, recalls to USA Today of his upbringing in Massachusetts. So maybe I have some aversion to it, he adds with a laugh, while also noting that he's never really had good answers for questions about his wardrobe. The fascination with Kornacki's attire began after the 2020 election. With the COVID-19 lockdown, the journalist recalls that there was really nobody in 30 Rock. Thinking nothing of the pants he was wearing at the time, Kornacki tucked in his shirt so it looked neater, put on a tie, and went on the set. And a day or two later, my producer's asking me, "What brand pants are you wearing?" Kornacki says. I said, "What kind of a question is this?" The pants were from Gap. Kornacki has since traded the khaki color for a darker blue. But what hasn't changed, even in this day of AI and algorithms, is his approach to preparing for election nights. I print out blank county maps of states and I fill them in myself, Kornacki says of his old school process, which he's currently in the middle of with 2 Texas Senate primaries on March 3rd. I have a whole color coding system based on past election results, based on demographic patterns, and I update them after every election. Kornacki explains that the repetition of filling out the maps ahead of every election cycle gives him a better chance at recalling information without pausing or freezing up. Some of his prep also can be seen on the night of the election. NBC streams Kornacki Cam, an alternate angle of the broadcast focused solely on the journalist. The additional screen, which is live during both the broadcast and commercial breaks, will return for NBC's coverage of the primaries in March. The last Kornacki Cam in December racked up more than 1.5 million views across all platforms. And so when Kornacki wraps this interview, he'll walk back to his office and continue to study the 254 counties in Texas. He's also in the middle of Winter Olympics coverage, which is why he walked over in the first place. The games in Milan have spurred a new assignment for the journalist, an online series called Keeping Score with Kornacki. Kornacki helps viewers keep score during the Winter Games. It's a dizzying month of sports at the Peacock Network. NBC broadcasts the Super Bowl, the NBA All-Star Game, and is now airing the Winter Olympics. Keeping Score with Kornacki launched before the Winter Games can be seen by NBC News subscribers on the network's website or app. Kornacki has brought the same mindset from election and football coverage to this project. Learns something new and shares it with the audience. The journalist brings up the Olympic debut of ski mountaineering as an example of a sport that was perfect for his series. I call this one skiing without the chairlift, he jokes. Basically, they race up the hill, then they turn around and race back down the hill, and there's permutations with that. But how does that work? How do you keep score? What are the rules of that? What are people watching? What I love about the Olympics is just so many of these sports are so exotic and so different than anything that I'm thinking about or dealing with day to day, Kornacki says. Recent segments have covered bobsledding and speed skating. It's really fun to try to figure out what the structure of these sports is. And again, I think a lot of people have that experience watching these games. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 34 minutes after the hour. Here's sports, which is Section C. Chinese upset Stoles for 1,500 gold from Nancy Armour. Jordan Stoles' quest for 4 gold medals at the 2026 Winter Olympics has ended. A favorite in the men's 1,500 meters, the American speed skater took home silver February 19th at the Milan Cortina Winter Games, finishing behind China's Zhang Ning, who broke the Olympic record en route to gold. Kaya Noos of the Netherlands got bronze. The world record is 1 hour, 40 minutes, and 17 seconds. Stoles knew it was going to be a fight at the first split, when he was slower than he expected. I didn't quite feel it in the legs, he said. He was 1.35 seconds going into the last lap. Though he was able to close the gap somewhat, he couldn't catch Ning, who clocked in a blazing 1 hour, 41 minutes, and 98 seconds in the race of his life. Stoles finished in 1:42.75, 0.77 seconds back. I didn't have my best race, he said. There's nothing I could do about it. Ning had his best race, and I'm happy he was able to get it. He tries really hard, and he's always trying to be on the podium, and now he was able to win. So that's super cool for him. Stoles seemed to be both gassed and shell-shocked as he did his cool-down and appeared to be fighting emotions during the medal ceremony, but he was smiling when the medalist posed for photos and was able to take a pragmatic view of the result afterward. It was still a good race. I'm still happy with silver, and I still have 2 golds, he said. Stoles, a 21-year-old from Wisconsin, has an impressive medal haul of 2 golds and a silver at these games, with 1 race left to go. The mass start on February 21st. It's been a superb showing for him at the Milano Speed Skating Stadium, setting Olympic records while winning in the 500 meters and 1,000. Stoles was trying to become the first man since Eric Heiden to win 4 gold medals at a single game. Heiden famously won 5 at the Lake Placid Olympics, sweeping every race. Nobody's been able to do what Heiden's done, and it probably will never happen again, Stoles said. I mean, 5 gold medals is insane. Asked if he had a better appreciation for what Heiden did, Stoles said, I already appreciated before I ever had anything. In the 1500, Stoll skated in the final pair of the lineup, alongside Norway's Peter Kongshaug, the reigning world championship. Stolz entered the event as the heavy favorite, having won the race in each of his 5 World Cup appearances during the 25-26 season. He also won gold in the 1500 at the World Championships in 2023 and 2024. He took silver in 2025 despite still feeling the effects of pneumonia a few weeks earlier. This week, Stoll said, "I think if I have a good 1500, it should turn out well. I'm hoping for gold in that." Quinn Hughes' overtime heroics advanced the USA. The men's hockey schedule is the semifinals on the 20th, Canada versus Finland, 10:40 a.m. Eastern, USA Network, Peacock, NBCOlympics.com. US versus Slovakia, 3:10 Eastern, Peacock, NBCOlympics.com. Bronze medal game, February 21st, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, USA Network, Peacock, NBCOlympics.com. Gold medal game, February 22nd, 8:10 a.m. Eastern, NBC, Peacock, NBCOlympics.com. U.S. defenseman Quinn Hughes promises he is having a good time as internet sleuths debate whether the U.S. defender is happy based on his facial expressions or lack thereof. Hughes' excitement was on full display after he scored the game-winning overtime goal to defeat Sweden 2-1 in the men's hockey quarterfinals on February 18th at the Winter Olympics. Asked what he felt after finding the back of the net, he simply said, "Relief." Hughes' teammates embraced him in celebration after the goal, which punched Team USA's ticket to the semifinals, where they will face Slovakia on February 20th. Hughes then shared a hug with his brother, Jack Hughes. "That's unreal. That's a massive goal in a massive moment. It was just one of our best players taking over and winning the game for us," Jack said. Dylan Larkin added, "Unbelievable moment for our country and for USA Hockey. For him to do it, it gives me chills." Matthew Tkachuk has said Hughes' first career Olympic goal sent him airborne. "It was definitely the highest I've jumped since my surgery. I'll have to hit the foam roll," he joked. Hughes was disappointed he wasn't able to represent his country in last year's Four Nations face-off due to injury, but he's making up for lost time at the Olympics, the first to include NHL players since 2014. "I felt like I was playing great hockey at the time and wasn't able to be there," he said of the Four Nations tournament. "It sucks, but you're moving on. I'm here this time. I'm just really enjoying it." Hughes has 6 points in 4 games with 1 goal and 5 assists. He's one of 2 players on Team USA to record at least 1 point in every game of the tournament, joining Austin Matthews, who assisted in his overtime goal along with Matt Boldy. Hughes' 5 assists ties Brian Leetch for the most by a U.S. defenseman in the Olympics, with NHL players participating. "I've been enjoying wearing the crest and playing with the superstars that we have on our team, getting to know these guys in the Olympic Village," Hughes said. "I just wanted to extend it as long as I can." The Hughes brothers collaborated on an assist on Larkin's goal to open scoring in the second period. The siblings' connection has been productive. Quinn Hughes and Jack Hughes have contributed to half of Team USA's goals, according to ESPN Insights. "That's family business right there," Jack Hughes said. "There's something unique about an opportunity to play with your brother," U.S. head coach Mike Sullivan added. "I just think that's another added inspiration for a guy like him to want to participate in these type of events. I know I spoke to him last year before the Four Nations and during the Four Nations and told him how much we missed him and what he means to this team, and there would be a time that he would join the group, and this is it. And I couldn't be happier that he's healthy and he's competing hard for us. The Americans led 1-0 in the closing minutes of the game and were 1 minute 31 seconds away from a regulation win when Sweden's Mika Zabret scored an equalizer. The shot sent the quarterfinal games to overtime, a 10-minute sudden death period played at 3-on-3. Space and opportunity is where Hugh thrives. Quinn Hughes, Jack Eichel, and Jake Gonzalez took the ice for the USA. Larkin said that he was as nervous as he's ever been in a hockey game, but seeing Hughes with the puck gave him reassurance. I calmed down a lot when I saw Quinn with it. Hughes said he created some space for myself, got lucky, kinda got the defenders in the position that I wanted and was able to get the shot off. Took it to my forehand where I wanted it. But his teammates wouldn't describe it as luck. He's got to be one of the hardest guys in the world to cover. 3-on-3. The way he's able to move laterally and get a shot off quick, Matthew Tkachuk said. He does it 5-on-5. He does it on the power play. We had a lot of looks like right in the middle area. I don't know if he was the third or fourth one. Went glove side, post and in, and lived to fight another day. Hughes' performance was all the more impressive considering he played many minutes in the overtime win. Sullivan said OT was their Game 7, and they were emptying the tank to keep the gold medal dreams alive. Shiffrin long ago earned due respect, from Nancy Armour. Mikaela Shiffrin didn't need this Olympic gold medal. Her legacy was secured long ago between her other 2 Olympic golds, her World Cup wins record, and all the other superlatives she's achieved. But that's never been good enough for the Peanut Gallery, which tunes in every 4 years and doesn't understand why she can't just conjure gold medals out of snow. Ski racing is hard, really, really hard. Get a couple of inches off your line and you're toast. Or worse, get a course or a hill that doesn't suit your style and it's just not going to be your day. But the Winter Olympics is the only measuring stick for some, and in their minds, Shiffrin hasn't measured up. Maybe now they'll finally get off her back. The irony is I've cared so much about wanting everybody to know the reality and to not want the answer to those questions, and to be so sick and tired of it. And I've felt this way since being 4th in South Korea in the slalom, Shiffrin said. In order to do this today, I kind of needed to accept the possibility that those questions would keep coming, she said. It was like, just don't resist it, just live in my own moment. And that moment, my God, was it magnificent. Shiffrin obliterated the field in winning the Olympic slalom on February 18th, finishing a whopping 1.50 seconds ahead. Silver medalist Camille Rast was closer to 12th place finisher Lauren St. Germain than she was to Shiffrin. With 3 gold medals, Shiffrin is now tied with snowboarder Shaun White and bobsledder Kaylee Humphries for second most by a U.S. Winter Olympian. Speed skaters Bonnie Blair and Eric Heiden have 5 each. Her 4 total medals ties her with Julia Mancuso for most medals in alpine skiing by a U.S. woman. Only Norway's Ketil André Amot and Croatia's Jenica Kolstek have more gold medals with 4. When Shiffrin crossed the finish line, she looked at the scoreboard for several long seconds. I never seemed to be able to read the scoreboard before reality hit, about what she'd done, what it took to get here, and all the people, here and beyond, who've played a part in it. She cried as she hugged her mother, Eileen, who was also one of her coaches. She paused to gather herself and then kissed her hand and touched the snow, a tribute to her deceased father, before climbing onto the medal's podium. These moments, we do build them up for sure. I think everybody builds it up, and I'm building it up for myself, too, she said. Like I said, the biggest task today was to simplify and focus on the skiing. Schifrin's career at the Olympics and everywhere else is the kind of dominance that inspires people to hang banners, build statues, and name their children and pets after. Yet, rather than appreciating what she's done, she's always been held to an impossible standard. You won a gold medal in the giant slalom at the Pyongyang Games? Great. But what about that fourth place finish in the slalom? The Beijing Olympics were bizarro world because of the COVID-19 restrictions. And it was the first games since the unexpected death of your dad, who was so central to you as both a person and a ski racer. But what's wrong with you that you couldn't win a single medal? And when Schifrin struggled in the slalom portion of the team combined this time, her 15th place finish, dropping her and Breezy Johnson from first to fourth, it was here we go again. I knew after the team combined that there would be some stories out there that would be really frustrating to look at, Schifrin said. The truth is, Schifrin never had an Olympic problem. She had ski races that didn't go her way, which is no different than from what happens every season. No different from the Olympic experience of pretty much every other skiing great. By the way, Marcel Hirscher, whose 8 overall World Cup titles are the most of any skier, has 3 Olympic medals, 2 of them gold. Same for Ingmar Stenmark, whose World Cup win records Schifrin broke. The reality of our sport is you lose a lot more than you win, Schifrin said. When you look back on my career, I know statistics and everything, but still I've definitely lost a lot more than I've won. So that's the one thing that's certain, is that you're not going to win everything. But most people don't see or care about that. So Schifrin's reality blew up into something it wasn't. This whole season, every single slalom race, I'm like, God, am I really just digging myself into a hole here? Schifrin said of her success this season in the World Cup, where she has won 7 of the 8 slalom races and finished second in the other. The one thing that's certain is that wasn't going to stop, she added. You don't get to ride these waves forever. Schifrin has ridden it longer and better than most, however. It's about time she gets the recognition and appreciation she deserves. She's more than earned it. You're listening to a reading of today's issue of the USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time's 55 minutes after the hour. NCAA rejects new spring ball proposal by Sanders, from Brent Sherbar. Colorado coach Deion Sanders has pushed the NCAA for permission to conduct a new style of spring football practice by competing against another team, particularly against Syracuse under coach Fran Brown. But the NCAA said no to that idea in 2025 and has done so again for 2026. Last year, the NCAA Division I Football Subdivision Oversight Committee noted that the late timing of the request in March 2025, saying it wouldn't be fair to other schools. This year, Colorado and Syracuse filed their request earlier, but were turned down for a different reason by the committee. The decision came in a committee video conference January 22nd, but wasn't announced or reported until USA Today confirmed it this week. The committee denied it because a subcommittee is reviewing the whole football calendar for possible changes, including spring practices, according to documents obtained by USA Today. Colorado spokesperson Steve Hulbert said the school wouldn't appeal. The subgroup may consider joint practice concepts during its review of the spring practice period and consult other governance committees that may be impacted by a concept, the NCAA's written rationale to Colorado said. The arguments made by Colorado and Syracuse could help lay that foundation even though they were denied for the second consecutive year. Sanders has wanted to play and practice against another team in the spring to style it like the pros in the NFL. Some schools, such as Texas, Nebraska, and Southern Cal, previously canceled their annual spring intra-squad games for various reasons, including injury risks. Colorado had hoped a joint practice or scrimmage would be a pilot program. In its 2025 request, Colorado noted spring scrimmages against other teams were allowed in Division II. The school also argued practicing against another team would reduce each team's risk of injuries. Only 11 players for one team would be on the field at once against another team instead of 22 for one team in an inter-squad scrimmage. Scheffler's consistency impresses fellow pros, from Todd Kelly. 2 years ago, the last time that the Genesis Invitational was played here at Riviera Country Club, Rory McIlroy suggested during an interview during the CBS broadcast that Scottie Scheffler should forego a traditional blade-style putter and try a trendier mallet. At his next start at the Arnold Palmer Invitational in Orlando, Scheffler began wielding a tailor-made spider putter which moves the wing to the perimeter and toward the back for more stability and forgiveness. He also removed a line of the ball he had used to aid in alignment, so it wasn't just the club change. But there's little debate that the change was effective. He won that week and 13 more times, registering 26 top 5 finishes and 33 top 10s in his ensuing 38 starts, as well as a gold medal at the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris. The world number one has not finished outside of the top 10 since last year's Players' Championship in March, a span of 18 straight top 10s. That's the longest run since 1983. His run of 8 consecutive top 4 finishes are tied for the longest streak on the PGA Tour with Tiger Woods in 2006, 2007, and 2008. He's relentless, and I'll never stop singing Scottie's praises because he's incredible at what he's doing and the way he does it, McIlroy says. I've had nice runs like that, but I've always been a little more up and down. I think anyone that wants to catch Scottie or get anywhere close to him is going to have to consistently bring that sort of game week in and week out like he does. He's really the first one since Tiger that's doing this. CBS's Trevor Immelman echoed that sentiment, calling Scheffler's consistency as through the roof. He's like the ocean, like he doesn't stop, he said. He just keeps coming. That absolutely keeps his competition awake at night. A couple years ago, you could say, oh, well, the putter is a little bulky and the stroke looks a little bit funky at times, and he strikes it out of the heel and misses putts to the right. But he's gone ahead and turned that weakness into a strength over the last 2 seasons. If you go back to 2 years ago or the end of the season, he was 151st in strokes gained putting. At the end of 2024, he was 70th. And at the end of 2025, he was 19th. So now you have a guy that is absolutely the best player in the game. If you combine distance and accuracy, he's one of the best drivers of the ball. Oh, and now, by the way, he's one of the best putters. But in Scheffler's last 2 starts, he has suffered from a case of Thursdayitis. He opened the WM Phoenix Open with a 73 and the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am with 72. This season, Scheffler has lost strokes to the field in the first round, but he played a combined 37.3 strokes better than the field in rounds 2 to 4. Last weekend, Scheffler trailed by 8 strokes heading into the final round and nearly stole the trophy. Max McGreevy had been there, done that. He was among a host of young professionals who shared a house with Scheffler in Dallas after they turned professional around the same time. McGreevy in 2017 and Scheffler in 2018. On February 15th, they were part of a threesome along with Robert McIntyre in the final round at Pebble Beach as Scheffler stormed back with 3 eagles on a round for the first time in his career and posted 9 under 63, finishing 2 shots behind Collin Morikawa. That's why I've lost a lot of money on him, McGreevy said. It was exactly what I expected from him and really fun to watch. Scheffler charged out of the gate fast, a birdie-eagle birdie start, and was 7 under through 7 holes and in the thick of the trophy hunt. He sprinkled in 3 bogeys, however, on a blustery day at numbers 8, 12, and 15 to shoot himself in the foot and finished T3 after stuffing a 6-iron to 30 inches at the last for his final eagle. These are some of the weeks when you look back. I'm very proud of sticking with it, not even giving up when I felt like things were going against me this week, he said. Just kept fighting, kept trying to hit shots, kept trying to execute. This week at Riviera, a course where Scheffler hasn't finished better than a T7 in 2022 in 7 previous appearances, marks another chance for Scheffler to attempt to smooth out any weaknesses and compete for a $20 million purse and a PGA Tour signature event against a 72-man field. This is what the 29-year-old Scheffler lives for, the endless pursuit of perfection. You never get to a place where you feel like you've got it figured out. I always like practicing and trying to improve and creating new shots, he says. I think golf is kind of the endless pursuit of trying to figure something out, and I'm never going to get there, but there's no harm in trying. Women's first NCAA set for wrestlers, from Mitchell Northam. For the first time ever this year, the NCAA will host a national championship for women's wrestling. For hundreds of women across the country, the road to securing a national title begins this weekend. Before the national championship gets underway at Extreme Arena in Colville, Iowa, next month, wrestlers will be sent to 6 regionals this weekend. Regional tournaments will be held February 20th to the 22nd in Elmira, New York, West Liberty, West Virginia, Franklin Springs, Georgia, Tiflin, Ohio, Indianapolis, Iowa, and St. Charles, Missouri. From each regional, 30 wrestlers, the top 3 in each of the 10 weight classes, will move to Coralville to wrestle for a national title. There, each division will have an 18-women bracket to determine its champion. The NCAA Championship will be streamed live on ESPN Plus March 6th and 7th. Ryan Tressel is the director of championships for the NCAA, and he said designing the first women's wrestling tournament began about a year ago. After it graduated from the NCAA's Emerging Sports for Women program last January and became the 91st championship sport, women's wrestling formed a committee made up of 6 people from Divisions 1, 2, and 3 to help shape the tournament. Before women's wrestling was granted NCAA championship status, Extreme Arena had hosted the National Collegiate Women's Wrestling Championships, a non-NCAA affiliated tournament. In preparation for this competition, Tressel and others from the NCAA went to last year's NCWWC and were impressed. Extreme did a tremendous job last year, and it was like, let's build on that, Tressel told the USA Today Sports. It was a place where we could be confident they're going to do some great work and a great job there. It's just about the right size for what we're going to be doing. Combined divisions for now. Iowa is one of 6 Division I teams that competes in women's wrestling at the varsity level, the only one in the Power 4 conferences. The Hawkeyes enter as the number 1 ranked team in the country. In the 145 weight class, Iowa's Reese Laramendi leads the nation in technical falls with 145. The Hawkeyes also feature Olympic silver medalist Kennedy Blades in the 160 weight class. This season, more than 112 programs across all NCAA divisions compete in women's wrestling at the varsity level. For this year and next, the national tournament will be a combined one, featuring wrestlers from across all divisions. That'll change in 2028. A chunk of the NCAA programs that sponsor women's wrestling comes from Division III, 55 this season, and they'll have their own tournament. The change was approved by the NCAA in January, but organizers still have time to figure it out. How that looks, that's what we're talking about now. Is there a way we can adjust, figure out the schedules, where they're all in one spot still, and they're handing out multiple trophies? We do that with rowing, for instance. Those are some of the questions that'll come up, Tressel said. For this year and for next year, we'll all be together, one big happy family. What to watch? In addition to Powerhouse Iowa, the other Division I schools competing in women's wrestling this year are Lehigh, Presbyterian, Delaware State, Lindenwood, and Sacred Heart. Kent State and Mercyhurst will add teams in the coming seasons, and Oklahoma State is among those with a club team. Lehigh has the top-ranked wrestler in the 110 weight class in Audrey Jimenez, who is 13-0 this season and won a gold medal in the 2025 Pan American Championships. There are stars in other divisions too, like Division III North Central's Belle Mir. The daughter of former UFC heavyweight champion Frank Mir, she was named USA Wrestling's Athlete of the Week earlier this month after posting a 10-0 tech fall, 43 seconds into her match in a duel against Wartburg. One difference between men's and women's wrestling at the NCAA level is that the women compete in freestyle wrestling, which matches the Olympics. The men compete in folk style. In women's freestyle, points are not awarded for escapes. They can earn a point for a step out, when one wrestler pushes another out of the competition circle. A path for other women's sports. With this being the first NCAA tournament for women's wrestling, Tressel and his team will be watching the competition closely to find ways to improve. The student-athlete experience is our biggest thing, Tressel said. How can we help make that better? That's number one. And then there's other things operationally, how we're managing the mats and floor control and access and things like that. Women's wrestling was added to the Emerging Sports for Women program in 2020. By 2023, more than 40 schools sponsored the sport, and it was awarded championship status in 2025. That timeline could be similar for flag football, which was added to the NCAA Emerging Sports for Women program this year. NCAA President Charlie Baker is really excited about this. It's starting this excitement, which is what I felt, Tressel said. You know what the future holds for other emerging sports out there too, with women's flag football coming on. There's a lot of great opportunities coming up for women's sports in the next number of years. You've been listening to a reading of the USA Today for February 20th. We read the USA Today weekdays at noon. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555. Your reader for this hour has been Nancy.
Coming up next to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have episode number 37 of Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. At 3 o'clock, we have New York Magazine, and at 4 o'clock, a re-airing of this morning's Buffalo News. Stay with us for these readings and more. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio Reading serves people who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. From its broadcast studios at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga, just north of Clinton Street. Almost 40 years and more than 300,000 hours of radio readings to those unable to read printed matter on their own. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings of newspapers, magazines, and books. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. You're listening to your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Our volunteer radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, books, and other printed matter. People who are blind or have a print disability throughout Western New York and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula are provided special reading radios. This year, the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service marks almost 40 years on the air. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio Reading Service studios are at 1199 Harlem Road in Cheektowaga. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service website is nfradioreading.org. For more information, call us at 716-821-5555.
Welcome to Independent Perspective, a public affairs presentation of Western New York Independent Living. Our guest today is Kelly Lalka, the Education Program Manager of the Western New York chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and I'm your host, Ernie Churchwell. Welcome to the program, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. And I thought we should probably clear up some misunderstandings about Alzheimer's right at the beginning. I gather senility is a term which is really out of fashion, kind of like calling someone with an intellectual disability retarded or something. It just isn't done these days. But there is apparently a distinction between Alzheimer's and, oh heavens, what's the other term that we mentioned just a moment ago?
Dementia.
Dementia, okay. If you could explain the differential between those two, please.
Yes, I would love to. So I do hear those words, Alzheimer's and dementia, used interchangeably often, but the fact is that they are actually two different terms. So we like to refer to dementia as what we call an umbrella term. It's an overarching term. So the definition of dementia is actually a collection of symptoms that are severe enough to interfere with daily life. So that's the definition of dementia. So dementia is something's happening in the brain, but what's causing it? Alzheimer's is actually the greatest known cause of dementia. So out of all dementia cases, about 60 to 80% of those folks living with dementia have Alzheimer's specifically. And there's about over 80 different causes or types or forms of dementia under that vast umbrella. And so I typically like to tell people, puts it into perspective a little bit, all Alzheimer's is dementia, but not all dementia is Alzheimer's.
Did I remember hearing on the news a short time ago that there was a breakthrough that had occurred which might help people with dementia?
Yeah, so there are a few new drugs that have been approved by the FDA in the last few years. We are now referring to this time as the era of treatment. So before 2021, there was no treatment out there that would help to slow down the disease. There were medications developed and approved by the FDA that would help to control the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease. But a few years ago, we started developing drugs that can slow the progression of Alzheimer's disease. So it is not a cure, It does not reverse it by any means. However, it does give folks living with dementia or living with Alzheimer's disease more time. So it does have the ability to slow down the disease, but not stop it or cure it.
What does the Alzheimer's Association do to help people deal with this affliction?
Yeah, so the Alzheimer's Association, we are a national organization. So any community across the country has access to a local chapter. Our chapter is Western New York, so we cover all 8 counties of Western New York, which includes Allegheny, Cattaraugus, Chautauqua, Erie, Genesee, Niagara, Orleans, and Wyoming. And so all of our programs and services that we offer to the community is completely free. So we have education classes for caregivers and for people living with dementia. We have support groups. We have care consultations, which are one-on-one conversations with folks where we can help point them in the right direction or just be emotional support to them. We often have a lot of resources. We can point you in the right direction, and we're just there for that support. We often have some really great grants in which we're able to supply some services or some products, but we are there to be that support for those families living with Alzheimer's or any other form of dementia.
You know, we must have been having fun because the time has flown. We're just about out of it. I'm sure people will have questions. How can they reach you?
Absolutely. We have a 24/7 helpline number that is truly available at all times. That number is 800-272-3900, and our website is alz.org.
Thanks so much for being with us, Kayla.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've been listening to Independent Perspective, a public affairs presentation of Western New York Independent Living. Our guest today was Kaylee Lalka, Education Program Manager of the Western New York chapter of the Alzheimer's Association, and I've been your host, Ernie Churchwell. Welcome to Independent Perspective, a public affairs program of Western New York Independent Living. Our guest today is Isabel Fernando, Community Liaison with the Communities of Care Project at the University at Buffalo, and I'm your host, Ernie Churchwell. Welcome to the program, Izzy.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. I guess you have a big picture about a major project that UB is reaching out to members of the artists community to help them build up some efforts that will contribute to it. First of all, what is the Communities of Care Project?
So the Communities of Care Project is an interdisciplinary oral and written histories project primarily, but we also have mini grants that can be awarded to the community, and one of those mini grants is the Artist Mini Grant. And this mini grant is directed at any local artist. Any individual local artist can apply, and they can get the money to fund a project relating to care, caregiving, disability, and more. Yeah.
All right. And what types of artworks are acceptable to be part of the project?
So we funded a variety. We have painters, we have people who are doing sort of more performance-based artwork, people who are doing video projects, people who are doing, like, sculpture would be accepted. Any sort of art that you could think of would be accepted, so long as it pertains to the themes, again, of care, caregiving, and disability and things like that. So, yeah.
Ah, boy, that is a far-ranging project. I believe that in order to be considered for the project, people have to submit their request for proposals documents by a certain date. Can you tell us when that is?
So our deadline to submit a proposal would be May 30th, 2025. So we have a whole month. Yep.
Terrific. And to where would they submit the RFPs?
So you can send me the RFP at my email address, which is ikfernan@buffalo.edu, or you can also send it to communitiesofcare@buffalo.edu.
Oh, good. A couple avenues that people can submit. Is this the first year that y'all have done the Communities of Care Project?
So this is our second year with the artist grants. We have already funded a few local artists that are doing great work, and their projects are going to be finished quite soon. So we're looking forward to having new people and learning more about new people's creative projects.
Well, so if last year's artists are just now getting to the ending point, I guess the artists are being allowed a fairly broad time scale to complete their work.
Yes, they are. I think it can range up to a year. I'm not 100% sure on that, but the information is in the document. I can send people if they're interested.
To give people more of an idea of what you're looking for can you give us an example of a project that's already completed that to kind of whet people's appetites, as it were?
So currently we are working with a local artist who is painting a series of portraits, which will have local mothers and people who have done childbearing in one way or another. And they are presenting their artwork at Fitz Books and Waffles, and they're also printing t-shirts, and that'll be part of their exhibit, basically. And then we have another artist who has done basically workshops every week where a group of people get together and they do basically little art projects, grounding exercises, basically creating community activity in that way. So yeah, there's a variety of things you can do.
All right. We're running low on time. In case people didn't have a pencil handy, what's the way they can submit their RFPs?
So you can send an email to my email address, which is ikfernan@buffalo.edu, or you can send an email to communitiesofcare@buffalo.edu.
Thanks so much for being with us, Izzy.
Of course.
You've been listening to Independent Perspective, a public affairs presentation of Western New York Independent Living. Our guest today has been Isabel Fernando, Community Liaison with the Communities of Care Project an interdisciplinary effort at the University of Buffalo, and I've been your host, Ernie Churchwell.
That Agri Frontier Radio reading service now